Ding dong, mother scratches. Welcome to World History 9 online lesson for the week of 9/23. So you want to put this in your table of contents. The title is right there, The Revolution Turned Radical, 9/26/18. And this is going to basically take us through the revolution after the tennis court oath and the storming of the Bastille. So we're going to talk about how the revolution is going to basically split up into different factions, and there's going to be some people who aren't satisfied with the change. They want more change, and that's what radical means. Radical means extreme change. So the first thing we're going to cover is some basic changes that occur at the beginning of the revolution. And one of them is something very simple, but it's very symbolic, and that's that France is going to get a new flag. So you can see it underlined at the top. You want to write that down. This is the old flag. You can see these little, they look like flower plumes. This was the former flag under King Louis. The new flag is something you probably recognize. It's called the tricolor, and it's called the tricolor because tri means three, and you've got three colored bars there, left to right, blue, white, and red. So the red and the blue are the traditional colors of France and Paris, and the white is the color that symbolizes the monarchy. So it's important to understand that this was powerful in 1789 because anyone that would wear these colors, you would basically say, hey, I'm down with the revolution. I am anti-absolute monarchy, anti-divine right. And just by wearing that, you just walked into a room and people knew that you were down with the revolution. So this is actually going to lead into one of the first big violent episodes in the revolution, and that's the Women's March on Versailles. So this is going to happen on October 5th, 1789. A couple days before this date, the peasants who are still starving, still don't have enough to eat. There's a rumor that gets back to the people of Paris that there was a party at Versailles, and one of the nobles told Marie that the peasants are starving, they don't have enough bread to eat. And she allegedly said, well, if they don't have enough bread, why don't they just eat cake, the burnt caking on the oven wall? And also at this party, it was said that the nobles took the new tricolor flag and threw it on the ground and stomped on it. And when these rumors got back to the people of Paris, they were hot. So because of the starvation and the anger and the resentment towards the king, thousands of French women began marching 13 miles in soaking rain to the Versailles Palace. Paris is about 13 miles from Versailles. And their demand was bread. They wanted the king to open up the royal granaries and give the mob bread. And when they got there, their demands kind of changed. They also wanted Louis and Marie to return to Paris with them. And that's what they got. Because Louis and Marie were threatened by the mob, and the women, along the way, they attacked the king's guards. They sliced their heads off. They put them on pikes. And Louis and Marie saw this. They saw decapitated heads on pikes, and they saw the violence, and they saw the bloodthirsty mob, and they said, okay, we will go back to Paris. And they never saw Versailles again. They were basically on house arrest. So we're going to watch a little clip from an interesting film called French Revolution. And we're going to play it, and then we'll discuss it and get back into the lecture.
T'as des envies, faut pas donner de nom. Appelle l'autre, c'est Majesté, vite. Allons nous réfugier chez le roi.
Et l'Autrichienne se
Nos batailles, ouvrez.
Que faut-il faire, monsieur Deguisson? Mourir, Votre Majesté.
Que Votre Majesté me pardonne. Ils m'avaient donné leur parole qu'il n'y aurait pas d'autre violence.
Et vous, monsieur de Lafayette? Vous avez choisi de les croire.
La Lafayette est de leur côté. Ils se moquent de vous. Le roi s'est enfui. Regardez, il n'y a personne. Regardez.
Votre Majesté. Votre Majesté doit se montrer au balcon. Sinon, nous ne pourrons plus les contrôler.
Non, Louis, je vous en supplie, n'y allez pas. Ils vont vous tuer.
Sire, je ne crois pas qu'ils vous veulent du mal.
À Paris! Le roi! À Paris!
Le roi accepte. Retournez à Paris et le roi vous suivra. Il ment. Si nous partons, ils vont s'enfuir.
Marat a raison! Ne partons pas!
Vous avez la promesse du roi. Et l'Autrichienne? Où est-elle?
Elle s'est déjà enfuie!
Non, Majesté, je vous en supplie. C'est la folie.
Some heavy stuff. That's right. So Marie is saved for the moment. When she bows to the mob kind of accepts that she has surrendered to them, and she is taken back with the king and the children, and they will remain in Paris for the rest of the revolution. So the guy that was in the crowd who was inciting the mob, he is what's called a Jacobin, and he is a specific person in the revolution. We're going to talk about him. But these Jacobins were the radicals. They were bourgeoisie, so they're educated. They were inspired by Enlightenment writers. They were read in Voltaire and Rousseau and all those guys. And they were using the media, the newspapers, to call for more violence. And they wanted an end to the monarchy, no more king. And they wanted to create a republic, which was really radical in Europe at that time. There were no other countries that had a republic. The only country that had any type of limited monarchy at that time was Britain. Everyone else had an absolute monarchy. So this is some radical stuff. I mean, they want an end to the monarchy, and they want a republic like the United States had established after their revolution. This guy, Jean-Paul Marat, was in the clip. He was down in the courtyard, and he was the one who was like urging the crowd and getting them all riled up. He's a strange dude. Before the revolution, he would hide in the sewers to escape the king's guards because he was always mouthing off. And he developed this rare skin disease, and it made his skin all itchy and scaly and a painful skin disease. So the only way he could ease that pain from the skin disease was to soak in these like salt medicinal baths. And we're going to talk about that later because that comes back on him later in the revolution. But he was the one publishing these pamphlets, and he was urging a lot of violence towards anyone who supported the king and the queen, nobility, clergy, and what's called counter-revolutionaries. And we're going to talk about counter-revolutionaries this week with the dot game. We're going to play that in class. So this is Jean-Paul Marat, and he is an important character. You need to make sure you remember him. And that's a painting of Jean-Paul Marat, not too handsome of a fellow. All right, you don't need to write that down, but we do want to note around this time that the revolution takes another turn. So 2 years after the tennis court oath, they finally hammer out a constitution, and this is the Constitution of 1791. So no more estates. All men are going to be equal under the law, and the church is no longer outside the government. The state is going to control the church from here on out. So the church is going to be taxed just like everyone else. The church is not going to have those privileges they had. These are big changes. And this is the National Assembly creating that new Constitution of 1791. And Louis's power is going to be limited. So we're going to have the king. Louis is still in power, but he's going to be a limited monarch like they have in Great Britain. So at this point, Louis is fed up, and he creates a plan. He is going to try to escape with his family to Marie, that's Marie and the children. They're going to try to escape to Austria. She thinks if she can get to Austria, that she can link up with her brother, who's the king of Austria, and they can raise an army and come back and crush the revolution. Now, remember, that's her home country, Austria. They get just a couple miles from the border when a guard notices them, recognizes them, even though they're disguised as commoners, and they're taken back to Paris, and they are basically put on house arrest for the rest of the revolution. The king and the queen aren't the only ones trying to get out of France. You have this group called the emigres. Those are former first and second estate people who are trying to get the heck out of France. And why do you think they'd be trying to get out of France? Well, these peasants are getting crazy. They're cutting people's heads off and putting them on pikes and lynching people in the street. So these emigres are trying to escape the violence. And as they leave, they spread stories of this violence. And it's getting back to the monarchies in Austria and Prussia. Remember, the king of Austria is Marie's brother. So he and the King of Prussia issue this declaration called the Declaration of Pillnitz. You see it right there. And it says, hey, if you harm a hair on the head of the royal family, we will come in and we will crush the revolution, and all you revolutionaries will die. And the revolutionaries say, you know what? Bring it on. You don't even have to threaten us. We're going to declare war on you. So in 1792, France now declares war on Austria, Prussia, and Great Britain. So not only do they have a revolution going on, they also have a major war. And at this point, many French citizens are going to become very suspicious of counter-revolutionaries. And we're going to cover that term this week more with the dot game. Okay, so this is going to be your online assignment. You're going to submit this answer to this question in the Dropbox. Don't stop the video yet. The question is the violence that we've seen so far in the revolution justified? Do you agree with Jean-Paul Marat? Do you think there needs to be more violence towards the First and Second Estate? So do you side with these mobs, these people who are storming into the palace and slaughtering guards and slaughtering nobility? Is violence justified in the French Revolution? Why or why not? And you need to write a paragraph answer explaining and justifying your response. That goes in the Dropbox. Should be submitted by noon on Wednesday, right? And this should go in your notes. So make sure that this goes in your notebook. And ding dong, mother scratchers, I will see you in class.